Okay. Could have been Schumacher also, you know.
No. Okay. So yesterday we learned about if you could trust a guy to say that he killed somebody. So we should probably start from the two dots at the bottom of Kuf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis. Who Ovid Yechavim that Yisrael, he told the Yid, Ketoil Aspasta, cut down some grass, V'shadi L'chivoi b'Shabbat, and feed it to my animals on Shabbos. You better do that. And if you don't, V'loi Ketel Nalach. And if you don't, I'm going to kill you. Kidekatilna L'pnoini Bal Yisrael, just like I killed your buddy, a Yid. The Amri Lai, I told him, Vashili Keder b'Shabbos. I told him he should cook for me on Shabbos. V'loi Bashili didn't cook for me as I had commanded him to, the Katilse, and I killed him. So you have a guy confessing to killing a Jew. Shama Devisu, the wife of this person who supposedly was killed by the guy, heard. So now she wants to run to get freedom because she doesn't want to be the Guna. She asked Abaye this shaila. Abaye found it very difficult to be mad to her. So Shahisa told Sarigli. He ended up keeping her 3 years and he couldn't come up with a psak. Rashi has two pshat in Tulsa Wrigley. Either and she would ask them as well. It was a yard time. And she waited for 3 yard sites. Talmidei Chacham would come and learn the Nishmas, the Nifter. But it took after 3 years, he wasn't able to give her a definitive answer. So Amr La, Rav Ada bar Abba, so Rav Ada bar Abba told her, Zil Kamed Rav Yosef, go ask your Shaila. Rav Yosef, the Charav Sakina, he was sharp. Ozla Kamed, she went to him, and Pashat, he told her a psak halacha, not what she wanted to hear. He didn't allow her to remarry, but at least he gave her closure. And this was the Mishnah. Pashat Mehamas Tisim. It says as follows: who is selling Paris Bashuk? And he was trying to advertise and show what great product he has. Beyond he said, Paris halalu, these pears that I have for sale, shall arlain, they're arla. In other words, they're fresh. They don't come from some old, beaten up tree. They come from a fresh tree. Shall azikahin, which Rashi has two different shots. One shot is there from Shemitah, but that wouldn't be relevant to anything. So Rashi also says Azika was a city in Israel that produced very good pears. Or shall not revayin, they're still from a fresh tree. Lo yamar klum, you don't have to worry about what he said, and you don't have to be mad for shumas and maisris, and there's no isser arla, there's no isser revai, there's no problem at all. Why can't you trust the guy? It's Messiah Lifitumai. The teretz is because he was just trying to say things that would make you want to buy his product. But he's lying through his teeth. He's in the sales department. He's lying through his teeth. And therefore, you can't trust him. So by the same token, if this guy is trying to coerce a yid to do a malacha for him, to cut down grass, to feed his animal, so he's going to lie. When he threatens to kill him, he will lie and say that I killed somebody else for not listening to me, to induce this yid to listen to him. So therefore, you cannot rely on this guy, and therefore you cannot remarry. Abba Yudin is Tzayden Omar. Abba Yudin from Tzayden said, once upon a time, a Yid and the guy were walking together. And at the destination, the Yid didn't show up. The guy showed up to the destination. And he said, Chaval al Yehudi Shayim B'derech. What a shame, this wonderful man who I was traveling with, Shemesh B'derech, he died along the way. The Kavartiv. And I buried him. So that was him expressing the sadness, the Hisiu Ishtoi, and therefore the Rabbanim allowed his wife to get married. There was a group of people traveling together. They were on their way to Antiochia. And the guy came and said, what a shame. On my trip, I found a whole group of Jews that had died, and I buried them all. Once again, his edus was accepted. V'shishim b'nei Adam. There were 60 people. Shemahachim l'karchum Beitar. They were going to the lockdown in Beitar because Beitar was under siege, and they were going to go through they're going to get through the line of the siege and go to Beitar. 60 people died on the way to Beitar. And they buried them. So here it's interesting because the guy didn't even identify who these people were. And being that we know that this man traveled in the group, we are mater their wives to get married just based on this that the guy said. They could even say edus if they didn't see it in bright daylight. They only saw or they saw his death, or they saw the body in candlelight, or even if it's the moonlight. You could even have someone remarry through a baskra. Now this doesn't mean the baskra of a nace that a sound comes out from Shemayim. Rashi says it means shamu koyot sayekes. If they hear someone screaming, Pliny mace, Pliny died, but below row adam the they didn't see the person. But it doesn't mean it's a malach. It just means they didn't hear them, they didn't see the person that was saying this. There was someone who was standing at the top of a mountain. And he said, Ish Pliny ben Pliny mimakim Pliny mace. This person from this place passed away. They went to the mountain to want to see the witness themselves. And there was no one there on top of the mountain. Nevertheless, we accepted that to marry off his wife. I am so and so. I was bitten by a snake by Reyani Mace, and I will die. I have a fatal snake bite. And the people heard him say that. They didn't recognize him. In other words, they didn't know independent. They didn't know independent of this person saying who he really was. And they went and they allowed his wife to get remarried. We learned. Beishamai says, Ein Mesin al Pi Baskra, which means that Beishamai would be disagreeing with our Mishnah. We still learn Mesin al Pi Baskra. So the question is, why do I need Rabbi Bar Shmuel to quote Beis Hillel as saying Mesin al Pi Baskra to indicate that we pass like Beis Hillel, and that's halacha? I must listen. It's our own Mishnah that already says Asta Mishnah Mesin al Pi Baskra. Look, Rashi. My Kamash Malon Rabbi Bar Shmuel, what Rabbi Bar Shmuel teaching us little Beis Hillel Masiyah. Then they have it Kavasai. He's telling us it's Beis Hillel who said Masiyah, and therefore paskin like that. Stamas Nizani, our Mishnah says that. Stamas Nizanami Hachi Amar, our Mishnah says that. Umemela Hilchasik is Mishnah. So Rabbi Bar Shmuel would have only told us about this machlokes to indicate that Beis Hillel is matir and we paskin like Beis Hillel. We don't need him to do that. Our Mishnah tells us that. So Gemara Hakamash Malon, the Mishtakich Stama, the Ein Mesin, if you would find a brisa somewhere that says Ein Mesin is a stam brisa, you should know we don't pass like that. Rather, it's Beis Shammai. That's going according to Beis Shammai. The Ein Halacha Kaish Stam, and the Allah would not be like the other stam, because this here is a stam Mishnah. They would not find it was impossible to find another stam Mishnah because the Gemara would have known about it. But if you find a brisa, sometimes not all the Morim knew all the brises. Even if you found the brisa, we wouldn't pass like. The whole chuvah motzu. In fact, the Gemara v'dilma shade haba. Maybe it was a shade. If it's a shade, they can't listen to his testimony. It has to be a human. If they only heard a voice but never saw the person speaking, how could they rely on it? Or maybe the Marab, they saw the outline of a person, so they knew it was a person. Dr. Rashi, they saw it was a person up there, but they couldn't recognize the person. Zok Gemara, Inu Nami Dummy. Maybe the Shadim also look, they take the form of a person. So what proof does that have? What proof does it give us? Just because we saw the form of a person. So Gemara, the Chazile Bebua. Rashi's bua is shadowed, sails shadowed. They saw his shadow. The Inu Nami is Lebebua. do not shadim also have a shadow? Zaktumara the chazule bebuah the buah. Rajas tzel tzilai. So the mafarshim that I saw, the Mesivta brings down, that what it means is when the sun is high up and there's a short shadow near you, it's a very sharp shadow. But when as the sun starts to set, and then your shadow will be much longer, then the shadow is not as sharp. And even though a shade has a sharp, short shadow, he might not have a deep shadow. That's how. I'm sorry? Yes. I'm thinking of little children when they walk on a street light. The street light, first their shadow is in front of them, and then it's very small. And as they walk further away from the street light, it gets bigger. And then suddenly the shadow is behind them because they're starting to approach the next street light. So it wasn't only me. All children noticed that. But I saw somewhere else that they learned that Babua means a reflection. They saw a reflection of him in the water. And Bua de Bua is a reflection of a reflection. So the Shaden don't have a Bua de Bua. In fact, Gemara, the Damal of the two Islu, the Bua de Bua. Maybe they have that as well. Rab Chanina said, Amali Yodis and Sheda. Yodis on the shade told me. So Rashi says either it means it was an actual shade that Rab Chanina had a relationship with, or it was someone who knew shade. In Lakewood, there was a guy who raised awareness to all of Klal Yisrael about the problem of Toiloim. And he wrote a sefer, and he spoke a lot about Toiloim. His name was Bodner. And we used to call him Bugs Bodner. Do you remember Bugs Meany? Do you remember Bugs Meany? You know who Bugs Meany was? Yeah, you never read Encyclopedia Brown growing up as a kid? Mati, you remember Encyclopedia Brown? Yeah? So who's the bad guy in Encyclopedia Brown? His name was Bugs Meany. You remember the bad? He was the bad guy. So, have you ever read Encyclopedia Brown? Remember Bugs Meany? He's the bad guy. Sally is right. So in Lakewood, there was a guy, we used to call him Bugs Bodner, because he was a mumche in everything bugs. So that's where this comes from. Yonis and shade, Yonis and the shade, not that he was a shade, he was a mumche in shading. He knew their rules. So he told us the bua islu, shadim have a shadow or a reflection, but the bua de bua less flu. They don't have this light and shadow that they wouldn't have. So if you saw that shadow of the person, then you could be sure that this is a you. Frankly, Gemara, if you couldn't recognize the person, we know that there's 5 women who aren't believed to say that someone's husband died. So if you don't know who this person is, the Dilma Tzarhavai, maybe this was her co-wife that was trying to mess her up. So how could you believe them? Tanya Baby Shmuel, Bishas Hasakana, Toisvin V'Noisnin, Afal Pi She'ein Makirin. What does this mean, Zok Rashi? Bishas Hasakana. Shadam Asukin. What if someone is in a very dangerous situation? He was stuck in a bar. And he screamed, if you can hear me up there, get least I write a get for my wife, so she shouldn't be the guna. You can actually write a get even though you couldn't see him. You can write a get based on what he said. He identified himself. My name is so and so. Even if you don't know who he is, you hear his voice, you can write a get and give it to his wife. Because it's in a very difficult spot. We want to make sure that women don't become agunas. So too here in a case where someone's husband disappeared, we have no information on it, and we hear this voice, we consider that chas as a kaladami. The shimloi tam and lazef. We don't believe this voice. We will not likely find somebody else to be mad to this woman to say shavaguna. So when you're in a tight spot, even such and testimony is nemon, and you wouldn't say that it was her tzara or some other woman who wouldn't be believed. I don't know why the Gemara didn't answer. That was a male voice, so it didn't sound like a tzara. But vice versa, even if it was a female voice, you can still rely on it. Thank you very much. What's that? Kabaltik. Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva said, Rabbi Kiva said, there's a shaila in the Achronim how to understand the Mishnah of Noshcheni Nachash. Is it the guy himself saying that a snake bit him and he died, or is it Pshat Noshcheni Nachash and because of that his face changed because from the bite and he's not recognizable? There's a little bit of a shaila what the chiddush is. Okay, let's see the Gemara weiter. The Mishnah weiter. Amar Bekiva. Kisheya Raditila in a Harda. We learned this Mishnah already. Again, one of the beautiful things about Yevamos is the built-in Chazar. So Rabbi Kiva said, Kisheya Raditila in a Harda la'avar Hashem. When I was going down, leaving Eretz Yisrael to Narda to Paskin on the Ibrayar, and Toshis, when we learned it on Daf Kuf Tazai, told us that normally you're supposed to do this in Eretz Yisrael, but if there's no Chachamim in Eretz Yisrael as great as the Chachamim in Chutz La'aretz, then you can go there. Or if there's no Bezdin, or there's trouble there. And on my way down to Rabbi Kiva, I met Rabbi Nechemia. Matasi Nechemia Ish Beistali. Amali, he told me, Shemati, I heard that up in Israel, they're very strict there. They don't trust in Eirechad to be matter a woman who's an aguna, except for one poisik in the Eretz Yisrael, Ella Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. He's the only poisik in Eretz Yisrael who does this. And Rabbi Kiva said, I told him, Kainat Varim, you're 100% right. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava is the only one who's matir, but it's not accepted to be matir a woman al pi Eirechad. Amarli, he told me, Emor lahem, mishmi, tell everybody in my name. You know that the Medina is full of danger. And the Maskana of the Gemara was on Kuftas Vavis, and because of that, I can't go myself and say this testimony. I have to rely on you. Because there was a shaila as to whether or not, if it's a time of gaisos, if someone's nemon or not. But the Gemara says you can't bring a raya from this Mishnah, because maybe all Nechemia was saying that he couldn't come there to show himself to say testimony, but you, Rabbi Kiva, you're going back anyway, please say this over in my name. And say the following. Mukabalni mir Gamliel Azokin. I was Mukabal from Gamliel Azokin. Shemasiin es ha'isha al pi Eirechad. You could marry off a woman from Eirechad. Uchshabasi v'ertzeisi advarim l'fnei Rabbi Gamliel. And when I came back, and I told Rabbi Gamliel this testimony, Samach, he was very happy. Samach looked very, he was happy. But Amar, he said, Matzani chaver Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. We found support for Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. And that's a simcha, because now they're able to be mater agunos. And look what happened right after that. Right away, he remembered that people were killed in Tel Arza. Right away, he paskin publicly that these women are mutter, and that created a big precedent. And from then on, it was much easier to be mater and aguna, and they would be mat eid mipi eid, even a hearsay type of testimony, or eid mipi eved, which is hearsay from an eved, or mipi isha, or mipi shivcha. They opened it up, and anybody saying any type of testimony, even hearsay, was accepted. They argue. They say, Ein masin es isha al pi eirechad. They rejected that, and they still were not matter a woman al pi eirechad. Rabbi Kiva said, V'lo al pi isha, v'lo al pi eved, v'lo al pi shivcha, v'lo al pi krivim, but only al pi eirechad. But he didn't open it up completely. Fact the Gemara, the Sover Rabbi Kiva al pi isha loy. Rabbi Kiva holds that an isha is not nemon to be mater and aguna. But Tanya we learn, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Mishum Rabbi Kiva, isha nemenes lahavigita nikal v'chaymer. A woman is nemenes to bring a get for her tzara, for makal v'chaymer. Uma noshim shamu chacham ein nemenes loimer meis baila. Madach women who are not nemenes to say meis baila are nemenes lavigitayan, are nemenes to bring a get. We said right because the ksav is merchiach olav. We said. So even a woman who's not neman to say edus is nemenes to bring a get for this woman. Zu shenemenes lavimeis baila. If I have a woman who actually would be neman to say meis baila, ein odin shenemenes lavigita. You have a riot that a woman is kosher to be a shlich leilacha to bring a get, and she can say b'fani nechta, b'fani nechta. So Zok Gemara. So you have a riot from here that she should be nemenes lavigita. Zok to Gemara, Noshim Sha'amu, Chachamim Hu Deloi Mehemni. Who are we talking about? Zok Rashi, Noshim Sha'amu, Chamish Noshim de Pirkin de La'il. Those Noshim Sha'amu, Chachamim Hu Deloi Mehemni. But Isha be'alma mahemna. So we have a chlori raya from here that a regular lady would be believed. So you have a raya from here, I'll call upon them, that Rabbi Kiva says that an Isha is namemes to say meis baila. So how could our Mishnah say, quote Rabbi Kiva saying lo al Isha? In fact, the Rishonim tell us that there were two chazars. First, Rabbi Kiva just accepted al pi erechad, but then he accepted even more that even al pi Isha, even al pi Eved, even al pi Shivcha, even al pi Kroiv. So at the end, Rabbi Kiva was moida that any type of testimony would be namemes. The Rabbi Kiva in our Mishnah is not the final opinion of Rabbi Kiva. That was in the middle of his moving over. This is where when he accepted al pi erechad, but not yet all these other ones. But in fact, Rabbi Kiva accepted everything later as well. Zok the Heilige Mishnah weiter. Amr loy, ma'aseh b'bnei Levi, shahalchu l'tzayar irat marim. There was a story with the Bnei Levi who were going to the city of Tzoyar. It was the Tzoyar city of dates. V'chala echad mahem, and one of them became sick, and so that he couldn't continue along on the journey. So they left him in a motel along the way. They left him in a motel. They said, listen, you stay here, you can't make the journey. On our way back, we'll come and pick you up. And on their way back, they came to the motel, and they asked the motel attendant, where's our friend? She expressed to them, she told them, Mace, he died, and I buried him. I buried him in the backyard. Oh, by the way, I charge $100 a night still. She had no ages. She was the one who said ages. Based on the testimony of the Pundakis, they married off his wife. And shouldn't any woman be like a Pundakis? Rashi says, here they believe the Pundakis. I'm sorry, I believe this is a little bit weiter. Is it weiter? Oh no, so I jumped ahead of myself. So they said shouldn't any a Pundakis is a goya, a woman who we shouldn't trust. Yeah, we're trusting her. If we're trusting her, oh, I'm sorry, it is Rashi. If a Pundakus is believed, because you see that they married off his wife based on the testimony of a Pundakus, surely a kosher woman, a Kohenis, or even a Israelis should be namemes. We're going to soon see, the Gemara is going to say why is a Pundakus considered a compromised testimony.
No, because this solution from somewhere else.
It is a solution from somewhere else? Okay. Could be. You know where that Gemara is? Okay, Zok Gemara weiter. Amar Lu, they said, Lichashetehek a Pundakis, when she'll be like a Pundakis, then the man that shall be believed. What does that mean? HaPundakis, Aitzialem, Makli v'Tamila v'Sevetay shall be other. She didn't stop saying that he died. She proved that he died. She brought all of his personal effects. So therefore, there was a greater than moments. That's one pshat. But there's another pshat that it was only Mesiach Lefitumai. Let's see Rashi. In fact, it's not her nemanis. If you have a case that's exactly like Pundakis, where there's other proofs that prove that someone died, yes, that's a different story. Then you'll be believed. So Rashi says it was Masech Levitumah. When they came, she said, oh, by the way, your buddy died. I have this stuff for you. So she was just being Masech Levitumah, and that's why she was believed. Although Rashi was another pshat, Pundakis, Klaimar, Boys at Indian, Shabini Pundakis, have a Nami Sharish and a Menes, Shay Pundakas, Haitziu Lahem, Balisimanim, some. So the two pshat in Rashi is either it's a Masech Levitumah, and that's why she's a Menes, or because she had Simanim, and it's the Simanim that prove that he died. Gewaltig. Let's see the Heilige Gemara as we come in to finish the Masechta. My great use of the Pundakus. If a Pundakus is Nemenes, for sure, Yisraelis or Kahanis should be Nemenes. What is so bad about it, Pundakis, that you would suggest that she shouldn't be believed? Amr of Kahana, Pundakis she was non-Jewish. And she was Masich Levitumai. She said, Makloi, Tarmiloi, this is a stick, this is a knapsack, and this is where I buried him. She said, how could you say it was Masich Levitumai? They came to her, the Mishnah says, and they asked her, where's our buddy? That's not Masich Levitumai. Masich Levitumai, if she mentions it on her own, if they're confronting her, she's no longer in a menace. Didn't they ask her, where is our buddy? So that's not Masich Levitumai. Dr. Gemara, even the Chazesinu, Bachi, what happened was they saw her crying. The fact that she was crying, that's the Masich Levitumai. Once they saw her crying, then they asked her, because they figured something went wrong, and then she responded, but we consider it Masich Levitumai because she initiated it, because she was crying. So that's Masich Levitumai, because no one's asking her to cry, and that's what triggered this whole dialogue.
I thought it was a Masich Levitumai, is that the person has no advantage or gain by saying what they
But here,
claim.
if there's an accusation, if they ask, where's our friend? So it could almost be accusatory that, what did you do? Maybe you killed him. Or you kidnapped him. So then it's not Masich Levitumai anymore, because she might be trying to protect herself. But by her crying, she's offering up the information on her own.
All right, but there's immediately a suspicion falls upon her. She's, she makes that claim. So she puts herself in jeopardy, so to speak, by saying that. So if
you're right, right, and
so
she said that
one does that, it's also wouldn't it be the Vituma?
Not if they confronted her with an accusatory tone. Where's our friend? We left him here. Where is he? So that's not Masich Levitumai. Now she's already on the defense.
Also, talking about charging, if he died, many days earlier, so if she charges that, it's certain.
You want to know if she charged him? How many nights did she charge him? If he died a week ago, did she charge him till now for last night's rate? That's like the nursing home scandal in the 80s.
Right.
Remember the nursing home scandal? Where they would keep dead bodies in freezers so that they can continue billing the government. So I actually was friendly with the son of the person who went to jail for that. And he told me, it's not true. We didn't freeze dead bodies. We billed them, yes, but we didn't freeze dead bodies. The government was so disorganized, you didn't have to freeze a dead body. You could bury them with the death certificate now, and you could still bill them because they were so disorganized. So he says, it's not true. We didn't freeze dead bodies. He said, Masich Levitumai. We didn't freeze dead bodies, but we didn't steal. There was a story with a person. He came to say Edus that a woman is mutter l'shuk, and he said his testimony in front of Rav Amar Loi, so Rav Tarfon asked him, Bini, my son, heich ata yodeya be'edus ishusu. Where do you come to knowing anything about this woman's husband and what happened to him? Amar, he said, I'll tell you. Anivahu hayinu halchen b'derech. We were traveling together. Be'radav acharenu guys, and some bandits, some army was running after us. We were in trouble. This guy was a tough guy. He grabbed and ripped off a branch of an olive tree, and he waved it at them and ran after them with this intimidating stick. It looked like a cross between an AR-15 and an M16. When they saw that branch he had, they turned around their tanks and they ran for their life. The Hichser is a guy, and he was successful in making them turn back. Amarti, I told him, Aryeh, oh, you are strong like a lion. So I used the word Aryeh as a figurative term to describe him as a hero. Amrli says, how do you know that's my name? Who told you? How do you know my name? Actually, that's what they call me. The area, my city. Yochanan, Rabbi Yonasan Aryeh. The Mechvar Shichaya from the village of Sechaya. Liyamim Chala. So that's how I do his name. Now I know him. Later on, they got sick. Yeah. Days later, I got sick. Mason, he died. So now he came to a Tarfin in Sichaya and said, this woman should be mutter because I know he died. The Haysi Rab Tarfin is his sister. Rab Tarfin married off his daughter, his wife. Are you telling me Rab Tarfin doesn't require Drisha v'Chakira to cross-question him and ask him different questions to make sure that the Eidus is emes? Because there's a shaila here, whether or not, how much you have to scrutinize the Eidim or the aid that comes to be matter a woman. Latani, we learned a different variation of this same story. How do you know so this story is slightly different because the branch wasn't from a olive tree, it was from a fig tree. As a guy, and once again, so here he didn't say, how do you know my name? He says, you got my name right. Yochanan ben Yonasan Aryeh, comma, the Mechvar Shechaya from the city of Shechaya. And then the aide went on and said, Liyamim Chala Umeis. And days later he died, he got sick and died. And that's why I'm saying testament. Amar Loi. So Reb Tarfon questioned him. So in the last episode that when the bride said the story, it doesn't mention anything about Reb Tarfon cross-questioning him. But here, Reb Tarfon tried to cross-question him and get him tripped up. He says, are you sure that you heard this right? Didn't you say differently? Didn't you say, Yochanan ben Yonasan, the Mikvar Shichaya Aryeh? Didn't you tell me that he came from the city of Shichaya Aryeh? So not that his name was Yochanan ben Yonasan Aryeh from the city of Kfar Shichaya. His name was only Yochanan ben Yonasan. And he came from the city of Shichaya Aryeh, which would invalidate your whole testimony because we're in the village of Shichaya and we're looking for information on the man named Aryeh. And maybe you never even spoke to a man named Aryeh. You only spoke to a man who came from the city of Shichaya Aryeh. So you see Reb Tarfon is trying to trip him up. Omer Lei, she told Reb Tarfon, Loi, don't trip me up. I know exactly what I saw. Elakach amarti lo, Yochanan ben Yonasan Aryeh, the Mikvar Shichaya. V'diktek alav shnayim or shloisha pamim. Reb Tarfon asked him 3 or 4 times to try to get the aid to trip up. The chivin is the verb, and this aid was able to withstand all of the cross questioning, and there was a verified aid. And only then, after this drisha v'chakira, the Haysi Reb Tarfon is ishtar. So, do you require this drisha v'chakira or not? It's a fact, it's a machlokes tanoim whether or not you need to cross question witnesses who are being matter and isha l'shul. The time we learn, ein boitkin eidei noshim v'drisha v'chakira. The Rabbi Kiva, Reb Tarfon noimer boitkin. So what is the machlokes? Totally in whether or not they have to be boitkin. We'll get to that in 1 second. I first just want to see Rashi, who explains precisely what drisha is and precisely what chakira is. So Rashi's drisha is bedikos ki agad melchavan is. Just to make sure you got a story straight, is it from the Kfar Shichaya Aryeh? Was it Aryeh? That's a drisha. Chakira is beis yom uveis shah. Getting details of what happened and timing to make sure that the story is consistent. So there's one general inconsistencies. That's what drisha is. Chakira is making sure the times and the dates line up, not the story should line up. So the drisha is there's a story line up. Maybe you have a different storyline than he does, and the chakira is the date lines. Okay, so why would you have to do a drisha v'chakira, and why wouldn't you have to do a drisha v'chakira? Zog the Gemara, Shenemar said in the pasuk, Mishpat echad yiyah lachem. And Rashi tells us, so what is this pasuk referring to? Mishpat echad yiyah lachem. It's speaking about din in the fashions. And the pasuk says, "Mishpat echad yilachem." The chiv the ashkach and the chesiv b'din in the fashions. Vida rashta v'cha karta. It says mishpat echad yilachem for all types of inyanim. So we say hu adin ledin imaminus. You have to make drisha v'chir the Indian din imaminus as well. Shenemar mishpat echad yilachem u'ma tam amru din imaminus ain't drisha v'chir. If the pasuk seems to indicate that it does, why do we not do drisha v'chir by din imaminus? So the Gemara shaloitinol dallas lovin. If a Mava wants to collect and Bezdin haksam a chinik before they're willing to collect from the loiva, because of that, people are going to say, you know what? If it's so difficult to collect, I'm not borrowing, I'm not lending money anymore. I am no longer lending money. So in order to avoid that, we want to make it a little easier for a Malva to collect. And that's why by Dinei Moments we no longer collect. Now the question is, what is this? Since when we're matter her, we're also going to give her ksuba. We treat this like Dinei Moments, and therefore no drisha v'chira is required. Umar Savar and the other Tana held, even because Sharin and Eishes Alma, since we're being matter and Eishes, which is a chiv chenek, Rashi says, therefore Kedin Nefasha Dami and a drisha v'chakira is required. Okay, when we to finish the Masechta, I'm not going to read the last line now, but the pasuk that's quoted is B'chol Banayich, because we're talking about Talmidei Chamar b'Sholem. So Banayich, there's 4 Masechtas that end with this line, and they're referred to with the word Banayich. Beis stands for brachas, Nun stands for Nedarim, I believe, Yud stands for Yevamos, and Chav stands for Ksubas. And it's talking about Krisus. And it's talking about the 4 types of Shalom. There's Shalom ben Adam l'chaveroi, there's Shalom ben Adam l'makom, there's Shalom ben Ish l'ishtoi, and there's Shalom ben Guf and Neshama. So the Shalom ben Adam l'makom is brachas. That's why we make brachas. The Shalom ben Ish l'ishtoi is ksubas. The Shalom ben Adam l'chaveroi is Yevamos, because that's one brother helping out another brother, and the Shalom ben the Guf and Neshama is Krisus, because that's how we learn the Kabbalah to have to be brought. So that's one of the explanations. Now we remember at the beginning of our Masechta, it's been Guf and Neshama, I guess. We remember at the beginning of our Masechta. I'm sorry, maybe it's Nadar. What? It's Nazir. Okay, say I don't know. I knew it started with a nun. Oh.
Yeah, so you can make the drasha however you want. You just pick the Masechta and then make the drasha.
Oh, so that means that. Okay, so I just want to theorize that the beginning of the Masechta started with Shalom. I don't know if you remember. We asked, why do we say Ezel Mekayman every day? Why do we pick the Punta Brisa? That's that Perek Mishnayos, because the only Perek Mishnayos where there's no machloikis. There's no machloikis in that Perek Mishnayos. So do you remember at the beginning, the Gemara asked, why do we only have 15 women? Why don't we have 16 women? And one of them was Anusis Aviv. The Gemara said, because that's totally the machloikis, and the Tana didn't want to have machloikis in our Mishnah. So Yevamos is a Masechta that starts with Shalom, that ends with Shalom. So the Rebbeinu Hashem Yevarach Hashem V'Shalom, the schus that we finished Masechtas Yevamos, we should be zoiche to finish many more Masechtas V'Shalom. And like the Rebbeinu Hashem told Avraham, Shalom b'mamoinoi, Shalom b'guvoi, Shalom b'nafshoi, Shalom b'veisam.
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Let me just quickly have a couple of minutes. I just want to start just on the first mission of Ksubas. I want to get a head start. I'm afraid Finkel's going to catch up to us. So I want to quickly get a head start because Finkel usually finishes the same day. So I want to quickly get ahead. Yeah, I don't want to get a fight with him over the place. So if we move out of the way, we'll be able to. Zok the Heilige Mishnah Basula Nisais Liyom Hervi. When's the best time to schedule a wedding for a Basula? That's on Wednesday. We'll see nowadays we don't. Today, the Basula Nisais when you can get a date. Basula Nisais Liyom Hervi. I'm sorry? Yeah, the Gemara didn't think of that one. Basula Nisais Liyom Hervi on Wednesdays. The Almana Liyom HaChamishi. And then Almana gets married on Yom HaChamishi. And we're going to soon see these are all Takanas Chachamim. Why? Shepamayim b'Shabbos twice a week. How do I do that? The speaker. Speaker doesn't help. Oh, yeah, so, okay. Okay, Gavalti. So the Gemara says, I don't even know where my pointer is. So the Gemara says, because the Pamayim b'Shabbos but they didn't Yoshu by Yoris. 2 times a week, the minhag was Bezdin convene in the cities, on Mondays and Thursdays. And Rashi says, why? Achas me'esher takanish atikin Ezra b'Bava Kama. This is one of the takanish that Ezra was masakin that's mentioned in Bava Kama, Berk Meruba, Mefarsh Chulu. It goes through all the 10 takanish. Ulakach tiknish etinaseh b'Revi. This is why they said she should get married on Wednesday. Wednesday night, if he was mizdavik with his new wife and he's realized that she wasn't a psula, now he's got to take her to Bezdin. Yashkim leBezdin by Kaiser. We don't want him to calm down and say, forget about it. We want him to be upset so that he can go to Bezdin, because this is something that could be a problem of a nation's issues. He may sharish ben time, and if it takes a couple of days till Bezdin's available, yeshlochush, we're afraid. Shemi is pious, he might calm down. With the scar died, if he came in, we'll keep her. And the problem with keeping her is, if she was mizana after she was mikudeshes, there's a chiv misa here. V'shema he's into tachta, v'nesrolach, and she's usher to him. V'yafin of Yitzma. But if we force him to come to Bezdin right away, yisbar hadover. We'll be able to figure out what happened. When the rumor gets out, shemi avoid Edom, because if there's a whole tumult, then Edom might come and actually say testimony about what they saw. So the Gemara is going to ask, Monday's also a day of the Torah. So why shouldn't she get married on Sunday? Why should it only be Wednesday? So a ksuba is really midaraisa. A person has to give his wife, promise his wife that in the event that there's a marriage breakup, he gives her money. It's designed to discourage people from getting divorced quickly. So the shaila is, why is it called a ksuba? Why is it called a ksab? It's just a written paper that I owe you money. What is a ksuba called? The Talmud Tanya is very beautiful. Ish v'ishtoi shechina shruya b'neim. Why? Because the yud of the ish and the hey of the isha, but they're missing the vav k. That's why I thought called ksav. It's called a ksuba because you have the extra vav hey in the ksuba. With the ksuba, then you have ish v'ishtoi shechina shruya b'neim. Okay. Mazal tov, mazal tov, mazal tov. Rabbi said, Baruch Hashem, we finished Yevamos and we're going to start ksubas.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, mazel tov. Oh, should we plan? Chaim, do you want to tell us the itinerary for today? We have a big siyum plan.
I'm pretty tired.
Oh, okay. All the information about today's siyum that everybody's invited to is on the WhatsApp. What?